start with rhythm first. Before we even talk about what notes you have to hit, we have to talk about what makes people want to move, want to dance, which is timing and groove. Because melody isn't just all about pitch. If your rhythm on that melody isn't vibing with your song, even the perfect notes won't save it. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually just put the root note of the scale, which is in G sharp major. A really good exercise is as you hear your song, just try to create a rhythm with your mouth. Now, if you're finding as you do this, you like the rhythm, but you feel like it sounds a little odd, that's because some of the notes, as you switch between chords, some notes start to become stable and some notes become unstable. Now, in simple terms, stable notes are just chord tones. Notes that are part of the chord, that feel grounded, that feel like home, like we're there. And when we hit notes that are part of the scale but not part of the chord, for example, the ones in between here and between the toes, the yucky, you know, where it smells a little funky, here, those notes feel like they want to go somewhere, you know, out of the room. Now you can use them to add color and tone. I want you to just follow the notes that are part of the chords. For example, the easiest one to pick is going to be the root note of that chord, which is here, 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 and here, usually the bottom note. Okay, so we got a really nice melody going. Now, before we exit the rhythm stage, there's a few key pointers I want to give. First off, the length of the notes will really matter. So keep that in mind. You don't have to elongate them here, but I do want to kind of add that as like a little note at the bottom of this research paper on creating catchy melodies. Is if a note is very short, obviously it's going to be more staccato. So for instance, that first note versus this. Right? Shorter notes, more groovy. Longer notes, a little bit more emphasis. That's the way I like to think about it. So keep that in mind as you do it. But if you want to keep things very simple at first, I would suggest just going with the normal length and just worrying more about the fundamentals, which is creating the rhythm. Because now we're going to move on to selecting the notes. Now, this is super important because this is where a lot of people are going to go, okay, I got the rhythm, I'm vibing, you know, it's groovy. What notes do I pick? And this can be hard, right? Because being creative sometimes, yeah, if you feel it and it comes, dope. But sometimes we need music theory to kind of get the brain working, right? So if we hold Command in Ableton and click the chord and the melody at the same time, now I have the chords down here and I have the melody up here. So as I'm picking what notes I want to put, I'm going to take into consideration the two things we talked about, stable notes and unstable notes. Stable notes are going to be notes that are part of the chord, and unstable notes are going to be notes that are not part of the chord. And you want to use a combination of both, but if you want to keep things simple, then you can be like Avicii, where a lot of the notes he would pick in the beginning of his career, you know, were a lot of the stable notes. And then as he got more comfortable making really dope melodies, well, you know, he said, F it. I'm going to go. So I'm going to choose this note here, which is this chord here. And I think I'm going to work my way down the scale for this section real quick. There we go. Okay, now the next note, let's go with D sharp. Stay there. That sounds a little funky. Cool, I like this selection of notes. Now here, if we break it down, right? This note is stable, part of the chord. This note is not part of the chord. In fact, it's in between the toes, as we talked about, right? It feels a little, ugh. If I stay there for a long time, feels weird, right? But, however, if I resolve it back to the D sharp, now we feel a little bit more like, oh, woo. See, that sounds fine as well. And I can also go here. Okay, so now I think this is my favorite one. Maybe if we put it down an octave, will sound better. Maybe we're just too high up. Doesn't feel right, even though we are on the note now in correlation context with the melody, right? So why don't we try either the D sharp or the F here? That feels a lot better. So now we start the melody there. Here I'm gonna move this. I think these 4 notes are, or however many notes I'm hitting, they're pretty sick. But I do want to switch a couple. Oh, I already hit a good note there. A sharp 4. That's catchy. Let's see if we can change one of these just for a little spice. Let's go to D sharp. Can we hit one? Okay, maybe. Sometimes you gotta ask, do I even need to hit those? I like this one here. That sounds great. And then that last one doesn't sound too great, right? So far, as you can see, I'm not really doing anything fancy. I'm not playing the keys fancy, making melodies. I think it's great if you know how to play the keys and you can jam out melodies, because I think those are the best melodies you're ever going to make. But writing them in also, there's something magical about it. Using music theory. Again, stable and unstable notes. Now here, you notice that I hit this 8 sharp and it just sounded glorious as I hit it, right? And the reason for that is because with chords, right, we can extend chords out. And you know, the music theory guys are going to kill me on this one if they're watching this video. But usually the way that I teach people to make chords is, let's say that they're writing chords out like so here. In order to make just the basic chords, the basic extended chords, no suspensions, you know, no inversions, nothing of sorts. All you really have to do is, if you're using the scale feature inside of Ableton, right, without, you know, where it's not showing the notes that are not part of the scale, you're like this, and all you have to do really is 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 to create chords. But here, as you can see, that A sharp 2, or that A sharp note is part of that chord, except I'm not choosing to use it in the chord because of the tone that it gives, right? However, in the melody, it's still fair to say that that note is stable because there is some form of relationship to the original chord that I'm on, which is that B sharp 1 here. Okay. Again, don't overthink it here. If it sounds good, it sounds good, but that's the reason why it sounded good, even though it's not part of my chord, even though I stated just use notes that are part of the chord, right? So now here we have our melody. Now there's one more thing that I need to mention when it comes to melody that's super important, and that is the shape and the contour of the melody. All that means is, are you choosing to go up the scale more or down the scale, or a combination of both? There's really no right way, but as I'm writing a melody, there's a reason why I decided to do a very drastic jump here, because if I remove the scale feature, you can see that at the beginning of the melody, we're going our way down and then we're jumping really high up here, which creates here in this section a little bit more of a And you can see here we have one of the biggest jumps that occurs that just makes it, you know, gives it energy that just like more like a little bit of a jump. Here we just stay in the same range, but then we follow it up with the melody going from up to down. Now, the last step in making a very catchy melody is to look for opportunities to really just break the norms in it. So what I mean by that is when we hear this, right, it sounds rather cool. Bop, 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 bop. If there's any way for me to remove notes, then try doing that as well, because sometimes when we create melody, we can get a little too wordy. And what I mean by that is, if you want to tell someone that you're hungry, a lot of people will probably go like, yeah, well, you know, I'm kind of feeling a little tired and stuff. Maybe I'm a little hungry. Instead of just saying, yeah, man, let's go out to eat. I'm hungry, you know? So that is something that can happen with melody as well. So a lot of times you can say, do I need this note? Or notes. And if you have a synthesizer, for example, for this melody, I'm using this thing known as the Acid V, which is going to be an acid-based synth, which by default, it's going to have essentially a legato to it already, which means that as I overlap notes, the synth is going to apply a bit of a glide. It's going to take its time to go up to the next note. And as I do that, I'm going to add a bit of there. It's going to create this effect. So now I can do that. And that sounds great, doesn't it? Okay, and here I'm worrying about the length as well. Let's do that here again. Woo, baby. Here, let's elongate this too. Woo, that feels great. Let's try an octave jump there. Nah, it's a little too much, isn't it? Woo. Give it more movement, so it's not so robotic, like pop, 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 but more like pop, pop, po, wap, po, pop, po. There we go. So if we go into MIDI control pitch bend, we can pitch bend this down like so here. So we're just gonna do this. So now when we play this, woo! Maybe not so much, but just slight. And then at the end here, maybe a little up. For a little bit of sass, a little salt. You can even do that. Let's try that. A little more. It's fun, isn't it? Now, a few key bonus tips that I want to add here that you can try out. One, if you can't come up with a catchy rhythm, then don't be scared to steal the rhythm from music that you enjoy. Maybe reggaeton, maybe like tech house, maybe trance, maybe techno. You can steal rhythms. Rhythms are constantly repeated in music, and you'll find that a lot of songs will have similar rhythms. The key thing, though, so that you get to keep your money if your song goes viral, is not to copy the melody to a point in terms of the notes, in terms of the sounds, in terms of the context of the overall song. But if you're just copying the rhythm, I feel that's a very valid thing. It's a very valid way of sampling something. As long as you're not copying the melody, the note selection, the way the melody goes up or down, the shape of it, okay? Very important, okay? But it's super crucial. Again, if you feel like you can't get catchy rhythms, the other thing is obviously to hear music and practice and hear the rhythms of the melodies they're doing as you're driving or as you're listening actively. With that being said, if you guys enjoyed this video and you make dance music, make sure to check out evilsounds.com where you can find all of my sound design work. And with that being said, hopefully this will lead you to creating better melodies in any genre of music that you find yourself making.